Next feature, bulletproof stainless steel. Overrated or
Alright, I know you see this YouTube ad. Looks delicious, right? Like some off-brand LaCroix commercial, but it's not even real. I made it entirely in 3D using Blender in this new liquid simulation program called LiquiGen. And believe it or not, it was actually kind of easy. Okay, this video is actually for all my 3D animation nerds out there. If you're an animator or VFX artist, you probably know that simulations can be a huge part of bringing your work to life. Whether it be CGI explosions or fake splashes of water, they can help you bring your fictional worlds into reality to tell the stories you want to tell. Or at the very least, they can at least make your movie look cool. And right now, we're at a point where CGI is everywhere in our digital media. One of the biggest examples obviously being our movies. Every explosion and crumbling building we see in the theaters nowadays are mostly just made from computers. But you already knew that. And it's not even just movies. Like YouTube videos have these explosions in CGI too. Like Mr. Beast has the CGI explosions at the end of his videos now. And that's mostly because CGI simulations and 3D animation in general have gotten easier and more accessible now. It used to be a spectacle where we only saw gnarly explosions in Hollywood movies because they were really the only ones that had the tech, talent, and money to make these things. But now, even our own gaming PCs are capable of making these sick VFX. And one of the hardest things to simulate has always been water. Back in the day, it was rare to see fake water in movies because the tech simply wasn't there. Before the 90s, it was actually only achieved by drawing it frame by frame, like in cartoons, like in The Prince of Egypt, or even in James Cameron's The Abyss. And as revolutionary as it was back then, it doesn't really hold up now. Fast forward to today, and now water simulations not only look amazing, but they have gotten way more accessible. Even you too can make Hollywood level water simulations, and I'm here to show you one of the ways how. One of the main setbacks with fluid simulations is the workflow, which in its entirety is quite time consuming, but now the game has changed. With JengaFX LiquiGen, liquid simulations have gotten even faster and easier. Time-consuming simulations are a thing of the past now. They're gone, because what makes LiquiGen special is that it's real time, meaning you see your simulation results live, and at no hit to the quality at all, the results still look good. I found this really allows for a really fluid workflow. Get it? JengaFX released the closed pre-alpha version of LiquiGen, and ever since, I've gotten to play around with it, and slight spoilers, I've been loving it. With how approachable they've made simulations with all of their products, not just with LiquiGen, but Embergen as well. But I had to give myself a project to truly test the limits of this liquid program. So, I decided to make a fake soda commercial. Instantly, when the closed alpha was released, I knew I had to use it in some sort of project because I just thought it was so cool. And a soda commercial was the first thing to come to mind. We've all seen those Coke and Pepsi ads. Oh no, not that one. Nah, that one doesn't exist. I'm talking about all the other Coke and Pepsi ads where they have close-ups of the soda can and cool music playing in the background. And if you want to get really crazy nowadays, they typically have some gnarly fluid simulations in there to spice up the visuals. Making something like this would be the perfect way to test out this program. So I did exactly that. But first, I wanted to run a test. I was inspired by this test render that ended up looking really good, and I figured I'd try something similar myself, but with my personal logo, just to get my feet wet, you know what I mean? And that ended up being a pretty easy test, since these programs allow you to just import any custom OBJ with its import node. So by simply just using my logo as an inverted collider and placing a bunch of liquid in it, I was able to fill it up with digital water, which only really took about 30 minutes to set up and render and figure everything out. And in reality, I could actually probably do it way shorter, but this was my first time using LiquiGen. That's super impressive. But I'm sure one of the first things you've noticed is that this doesn't exactly look like water yet. Right now, this is looking more like blue paint, but that's simply because path tracing isn't turned on, which once it is, then it'll start to look like clear water. It's like a realistic switch or something, right? But if you're rocking an older GPU like me, this makes the whole program run insanely slow. That's the only caveat. Newer GPUs can run path tracing way smoother with no problems, but to get around this setback, I'm gonna design my simulation in LiquiGen while it looks like paint, export it as a mesh, which LiquiGen actually allows you to do, and then instead bring it into Blender to make it look like water there, which ended up working like a charm. This is how it ended up looking. Which honestly is not half bad for baby's first liquid simulation. Now I can get on to making the actual soda commercial. I'm halfway certain YouTube has a lot of references I could take inspiration from. It also helps that motion graphic artists and aspiring videographers also use mock commercials to practice their skills, kind of like what I'm doing here. So there's no shortage of soda projects for me to look at. I found a bunch of nice looking shots and renders from other artists, and even found myself looking at actual soda commercials like Pepsi and Coke. But again, no, not that one. That one doesn't exist. And as I was scouring through countless YouTube videos and gathering my reference images, I was taking notes of what type of shots were used and how they incorporated liquid to sell the hydration of their product. And as I looked around, I found a good amount of inspiration for CG shots I wanted to try to replicate. None of these seemed unachievable for what I wanted to try in LiquiGen, except for some of the bubbly texture that we see in some of these. I don't think LiquiGen can do that yet. You gotta remember, I'm working with a closed beta here, so things like foam and bubbles are features to be added later, but not now. But I think I can still get some really cool results here, so let me just get started. Now I'm starting to get a nice visual in my head as to what I'm aiming for, right? Which is the beauty of reference images. But I still need to build a fake brand to base this on. Something that's catchy, something that's fun and familiar, but also, you know, has like a real sounding name for a soda. And the more I thought about it, the more I couldn't come up with anything. So I went to ChatGPT and asked it for some ideas for a beverage brand. And it honestly gave me some good ideas, 15 good ones to be exact. It took me 2 rerolls before it gave me the idea for Fizzy Fusion, a drink that specializes in crafting unique, innovative flavor combinations and, well, I don't know, whatever else it said. Honestly, I actually just like the name. And now that I have a brand name, I need to make a brand logo, right? Which I'll also use for the can art. But before I start that, I went on CG Trader and found these free pre-made soda cans, and I decided to use one of the taller, skinnier ones as our product. Then I went into Photoshop and started making the Fizzy Fusion label, which really was just a mixture of gathering Google image assets and some Adobe stock photos. And I just really had fun designing it. I really had to take note of what kind of informational labels beverage cans in America usually have, so I couldn't forget the nutritional facts and the barcode. I was basing this label off of sparkling water brands like LaCroix and Spindrift, which scream healthy by advertising that it has 0 sugars and 0 calories. So guess what? So does Fizzy Fusion. We're healthy over here. Then to sell the fusion part of the brand, I had to make sure the flavor was a blend of 2 fruits. And fun fact, I usually rock with ginger peach. Those are one of my favorite flavors, so I went with that. Tens of more minutes of designing later, and I have my label. Now, when I throw this on the actual 3D can, we can actually start animating shots. It kind of looks real now. This commercial is now officially promoting the Fizzy Fusion flavor of ginger peach. That is hard to say. Now, when it came to the general approach to how I did each product shot, I just closely wanted to replicate the reference images. And that's pretty much it. So I picked an image to go off of, and then I went into Blender to design the scene. Then I would go into LiquiGen to make the actual soda simulation. Then I would take the liquid back into Blender, throw a soda shader in it, and after some lighting and camera animating, I would call it a wrap for that shot. And I basically did it for all 8 shots, which sounds way simpler explaining it that way than it does actually doing it in practice. So let me just go over some examples, like in this first shot, where the can splashes into an ocean of soda, which was a pretty simple simulation to do, especially considering there's this whirlpool preset that already gets us halfway there from the jump. Except I have to turn off the spinning cylinder because we don't actually want a whirlpool. So let's turn that off and instead import our soda can with the import node and animate it dropping into the water with 2 simple keyframes. And honestly, yeah, I mean, that's pretty much all I had to do for this. The speed that the can hits the water does affect how crazy the splashes go. So that was really the only thing I had to tweak. Once I got the splashes looking good, I'd go into the export mesh node to export the liquid and bring it into Blender. As you can see, the can is missing. So let me place the can back in there. All right, cool, that looks good. I gave the liquid an orange-ish liquid shader, which ended up looking like this. And then voila, I have my first shot done and ready to go. So next, I thought it would be cool to do a close-up shot of the soda pouring out of a can, like in these references. And since this is a close-up, minute detail is actually kind of important to selling the photorealistic hydration I'm trying to push in this commercial. But the first problem I ran into, the 3D soda can isn't even open. So I digitally opened it in the edit mode, which was surprisingly difficult to do in a good-looking way. I ran with this for my first draft of this shot, but honestly, this kind of looks like shit. And I ended up coming back to fix this in a later draft. I even ended up recording myself opening an actual LaCroix can to use as a reference because I really didn't know what an actual open soda can looked like up close. Because to be honest, who would? And since I thought minute detail mattered in this shot, I thought a good way to elevate it would be to add some moisture to the can. I found this droplet add-on in the Blender marketplace that added water droplets to the can with just a click of a button. And the price was actually totally worth it for how much this elevated the shot. So shout out to that add-on for sure. Next, it's time to simulate the liquid again. So now I'm back in LiquiGen. Let's start on a blank project, and the setup here was simple. I'm thinking I can just import the soda can, use it as an inverted collider, and place the liquid emitter inside. That should work, right? Well, I mean, it almost worked. For some reason, the liquid wouldn't go out of the can despite having a gaping hole in it. I tried some ways to remedy this, like modifying the can and making it into a slide, or isolating the hole. Still, neither way registered the hole. And then I tried this. But honestly, that looked like shit. After some troubleshooting, I did find a fix. Apparently, the can was just too thin for the polygons to act right as colliders in LiquiGen. So, I had to thicken them up with the Solidify modifier in Blender. Okay, now it's working right. Let's change some settings to make it more splashy. Let's make the emitter size bigger, give it some more turbulence, sliding this ISO value, is that what it's called? ISO value down to thin the liquid a bit. A couple more minutes of tinkering around with the settings, and I got this, which looks good to me. So let's export that from LiquiGen, import it to Blender, put it where it needs to be, and voila, we have our shot. Or rather, shots, as in plural, because I split this into multiple angles for editing purposes. Okay, what's next? Okay, so out of all of the inspiration I've gathered, this is the one shot that went the hardest in my opinion. I love the concept of the liquid just falling down the can, of a collage of fruit, and even just with a still, I can tell just how creamy that drink is. The creator did a really good job with this reference image. So let's try making it ourselves. Although my fake drink isn't as creamy, I do still like the idea of the soda dripping down a fruit like collage, like a waterfall. And with how easy LiquiGen is to use, this really shouldn't be that hard to do. And spoiler, it really wasn't. Although this probably was the most involved shot in the entire project, it was still pretty easy to do. First, I needed to make a fruit wall sort of thing surrounding my drink can. And since I have multiple variations of peaches and gingers, it really wasn't hard to do. It was just time consuming. But the idea here is to take that fruit wall into LiquiGen, use it as a collider object, and then that's pretty much the setup. So I slowly but surely just surrounded my soda can with an assortment of peaches and ginger, which took me like an hour or something. I don't know, that's just time consuming. With the wall of fruit done though, I tried importing it into LiquiGen as a singular object, but it simply wouldn't load in. It just got stuck in a processing loop, and then it would just crash. which really blew because I was hyped to do this shot. But if the fruit wall won't import, I might not be able to do this shot, right? I was kind of perplexed here. But after some troubleshooting, I did find a fix. I discovered that this shit had 13 million polygons, so no wonder LiquiGen was crashing, because that's a lot. So allow me to just bring that way down. All right, cool. Now it's working. It's in LiquiGen now. As mentioned before, the fruit wall will be the collider object in this scene. Then I need to figure out how I wanted the liquid to act to get the right result I wanted. So I just placed spherical emitter objects all over the place in the gaps to allow the liquid to just drip downwards through the crevices, which made it look exactly how I wanted. Once I locked that in, as usual, I'd export it, bring it in the blender, place it, design it, and then voila, that shit was done. You see how easy it is? This shot was so involved though, compared to the others, it would be a shame not to get more angles of this setup. So I broke this into 2 other close-up shots. I just knew, like most actual commercials, the final shot had to showcase the actual product in some way, right? Just a still shot of the product just existing. Whether it's a soda can, lotion bottle, a pizza, whatever it is, they usually have an ending shot to close with for them to put their logo and disclaimers on. This is that type of shot, which ended up not even having any liquid sims in it at all. This was strictly all just done and designed in Blender. So I just started designing. I got this wooden surface from, again, Polygon to put a nice product display on it, put some plants in there, made them wiggle, add some lighting as usual. You need lighting, and that was basically it. Oh yeah, and last but not least, I animated the can sliding in and the fruits ricocheting and some secondary animation. Some tweaks later, and this was that shot. So with the shots done, I could finally edit. And there's emphasis on when I say finally, because rendering these from Blender at 4K 60 FPS took an entire 2 weeks, which is a long ass time. But I have a feeling if I rendered the simulations from LiquiGen itself as plates to comp onto the footage later, the renders might not have nearly taken as long. So hindsight 2020. But anyway, now I'm in Premiere. I found this song that sounded like it was made for the cool kids, and after I locked in the music, I honestly just had fun with just editing it. And with each shot being 60 FPS, I really could lean into the slow-mo shots that we're used to seeing in soda commercials now. Although, as I approached finishing this, I had the idea for 2 more quick pickup shots, so I had to go off and design those as well. But TLDR, the workflow for these shots are the same as the other shots, as you may have guessed. Now, with those pickup shots done, I could finally finish the commercial. I threw those into the timeline, added some music, and a graphic at the end. And don't forget the disclaimer. Every good commercial has one for legal reasons, probably, and I had this. This is the commercial. And honestly, I love how it turned out. So, what are my final thoughts? Honestly, I love LiquiGen. What the folks over at JengaFX are doing is truly amazing. They are taking things that were initially intimidating and they're making them easier and more approachable. Again, I'm a professional and even I'm intimidated by the previous simulation workflows for smoke and liquid. But with EmberGen and LiquiGen, being able to see and play around with these sims in real time and get quick results really is a godsend for motion graphic and VFX artists. These tools make it easier for you to be like Mr. Beast and add that explosion to the end of your YouTube videos. And you can even add some liquid sims to your short films. It's all easier now. And not to mention, it's hella affordable. Tools like these make the digital artist in me geek out because these are all amazing toys to play around with and add to your toolkit. Again, I know we already have programs out there like Insydium and Houdini, and yes, they produce amazing results as well, but not only are the learning curves for those both crazy, but so are the prices. The affordability LiquiGen provides in addition to the quality it gives really is promising, and I would encourage everyone to at least just give LiquiGen a try. It's cheap, but with That said, LiquiGen is actually far from perfect. I know I've been praising it, which is to be expected because it's not even really officially released yet. It's in pre-alpha. So of course I ran into some setbacks, like path tracing in LiquiGen running super slow for older GPUs, which discouraged me from designing anything in the app while I was on. But I will say this, I ran into a similar problem like that with the earlier builds of EmberGen, their smoke simulation program. It wasn't the most efficient with my 2080 Ti's either, which then limited me to what I could actually put out quality wise. As they released updates, I noticed the program became more efficient and I was actually able to go crazy with the quality. Despite my GPU staying the same, I'm still rocking the two 2080 Ti's. Some other bugs I ran into from LiquiGen: black artifacts appearing in 2 of my renders, the app freaking out whenever it hit the particle size limit, that weird hole glitch that happened with that collider in the pouring out shot, and one big glaring one was the actual miniature detail of the actual liquid in some of the shots, as it would just seem kind of blocky. If you zoom out though, it's actually not noticeable and it still looks like liquid, and messing around with some of the settings, this kind of sometimes does help that problem. But I'm wondering what the true solution is, or will these sims forever just look like kind of PS2 graphics when you zoom in? I don't know, I guess we'll see. But all in all, does this commercial pass the realism test? I don't know. Let's go ask my wife. Would you drink this? Okay, would you drink it?
Yeah?
Nice.
That looks so good. What the f? You did that?
Yes.
That looked like a video I could watch on YouTube before watching a video that I will actually click on.
Well, sounds like we passed.